DM Dango here with another review from the DM's Guild. This time we're looking at Yearning to Breathe Free. Will this tale of tieflings and political intrigue take my breath away? Well, let's go and look. Yearning to Breathe Free is a Dungeons & Dragons campaign for characters levels 5 to 15 by Travis Legge. It should take characters between 6 and 8 months to complete if you play once a week. It's set primarily in the city of Waterdeep in Faerun, as part of the political backdrop of this idea that the Tieflings have gotten upset and tired of being the persecuted race of Faerun, constantly being under boot, and decided to create their own society, and an underground railroad of sorts springs up to ferry Tieflings from the persecuted cities into a place called the Hellfire Hearth. And is the name of the organization that the Tieflings set up. And I really like this kind of idea of using Tieflings as this kind of persecuted race that they are in the main Dungeons & Dragons book, and kind of having the way the Tieflings saying, no, we're tired of this, we don't want to be part of this anymore, we're leaving, we're done with you, you're just trying to kill us just simply because of our heritage. It's a really good kind of motivator to get those characters that are playing Tieflings to sympathize with what's going on. And even characters who don't, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find even any player anywhere who wouldn't sympathize with that kind of plight. Being mocked and belittled simply because of what you are is quite a universal thing across almost everyone. So, in the case that we have here, we have a Waterdavian noble is murdered, and it's pinned on the Hellfire Hearth. It's kind of like, it must be them. It was Tieflings who did it. Look, there's Asmodeus signs everywhere. And your players and adventurers are tasked with discovering who did it and why. But that's not the only thing here. The campaign setting itself is structured in a way that it gives good ideas. It's not just about a prescribed path through the adventure. Maybe you're on the side of whoever did this, whoever the murderers might be. Maybe you set up the assassination or potentially smuggled in the original murderers into Waterdeep and then helped smuggle them back out. Or you could be just simply investigators, hired by the City Watch to figure out what happened and maybe try to work out kind of who did it, why, and where they've gone. And maybe as a result of that, you find the murderers. In the resulting struggle, not everything goes to plan and they end up dead. The Inquisition that rises as a result because the Tieflings must be collaborating, and maybe they're trying to re-summon Asmodeus into the world, carries on regardless of you, and they wipe the Tieflings out. Maybe that happens. And it kind of leads on for greater adventures further down the line. But wherever your players start, they don't always necessarily have to end up that way. Alliances shift all the time depending on actions of various parties. So if you find as a player or a DM that you don't like where things are going, change it. And the campaign can kind of adjust for that. What this isn't, though, is prescribed points on a line. There's not so much, in the same way that like Tomb of Annihilation or Storm's King's Thunders have points of interest, this has that as well. There are multiple points of interest for players to look at and experience, and they can kind of choose their own path. A little sandbox adventure in the middle with prescribed end and beginning points that have multiple branches, which is a really cool thing to see. All in all, Yearning to Breathe Free is a campaign setting full of good ideas. It won't give you everything you need to run straight out of the box, but it'll get you a long way there. Now, on to the bad news. What didn't I like about the campaign setting? Well, I felt that even though I praise the ideas, I praise the kind of concept of giving DMs lots of ideas to go with and kind of build their own kind of settings, I would have liked to see some more fleshed out bits in certain areas to kind of give that extra breadth to say, well, you know, how might a player go from here to here? How might they get from point A to point B, as it were, throughout the course of the venture? I'm trying to be deliberately vague in the review if Travis wants to come to me and we can have a chat about very specific things, I'm more than happy to spend that time with him. I think this is a really great kind of concept is where he's gotten to. Another thing that I feel was a little odd and off-putting was that you have multiple maps, which I can show here and here, in the adventure, but there's no consistency across them. Now, granted, some of them are things like topographical maps of villages, and they should be different, but there are things like clear battle maps or clear like location-based maps that we use one style for one of them and then we use a completely different one for another with no real rhyme or reason. All told, there are 6 different styles of map within the campaign setting itself. And it kind of gets a bit jarring when you're jumping from style to style, particularly when you get ones that are really like obviously much higher quality, much more detailed, and then you drop back down to these kind of more basic, simple designs. It'd be nice to have like a pass, like for Travis to have a pass through it and kind of pick one style. It doesn't matter really which one he picks, if he chooses the more detail-oriented style or the more generic kind of empty style. But it's important to have that consistency across the entire campaign setting. Another thing I will mention here is that none of the maps and none of the handouts, or what I would consider to be the handouts, the character portraits, which I can show here, none of them are included as separate files. Now that's probably okay for some DMs, but it's not okay for all of them, especially the virtual tabletop crew who really like to include those maps to use as battle maps because it makes it easier when we're trying to run things, especially over the internet. Because keeping players entertained is difficult when you have the internet on their front door. Things like 9gag, Facebook, and Twitter always attract attention away from what you're doing. It's one of the hazards of playing virtually. But I digress here. I really want to see them as separate files, particularly because integration is better if they're not. And in addition to that, you can get much higher resolution images if they're not part of the PDF. It means that you can just go, well, I can whack it up to as high as the tabletop crowd can take, which is for Roll20 is 10 megabytes. I don't know what it is for Fantasy Grounds and any other VTTs. But I think that's probably about 10 megs is probably kind of your borderline limit. So, now, what did I like about the campaign setting? Well, I like the ideas that are presented here. I like the kind of concept of a Tiefling secret organization that's trying to help and better itself, to get away from the kind of prying and prejudiced eyes of the general population. Being a demon can't be easy in the society where demons are reviled and vilified at every drop of a hat. You wonder why the player's handbook even says that some tieflings just embrace their darker desires because they keep getting looked at that way anyways. And then some rise above it. You have things, you have multiple tiefling heroes within the main modules themselves. But it's always nice to kind of have that really strong political backdrop, as it were, to build the players and kind of give like a good grounded world. I also like the fact that there were multiple red herrings all over the place. Multiple people who could have done the deed for potential gain. So like if you're as a DM looking at this adventure module and you don't agree necessarily with the way things are going, well, maybe you just change it a little bit and the campaign would mostly cope with that. It does have a prescribed murderer and who done it, as it were, but there's no reason you have to follow along with that. I also like that the character portraits for the kind of main important characters, especially in Waterdeep, were actual character portraits. I really like that. I really like to see those kinds of little things I can give to players. Like, oh, this is this person, and here's what they look like! It's really kind of extra stuff like that that brings players' immersions up and kind of gives them more grounding in the world and leads to better roleplay and just generally a better experience for players. Things like that are always good. Always, more handouts are better than none. If anyone ever wants to do anything to increase the quality of their product, handouts. Handouts. Best thing you could ever do. And this one does it really well. So I really like that. I really like the story in here. I really like the characters. They feel interesting, unique, and challenging. There are multiple things, especially when you have things like role-playing encounters. It's very easy as a DM to roleplay the various characters. They have a lot of prescribed kind of ideals, traits, and things that they do and know that you can work out of your players and get things out of. It really is a great little adventure for that side of things. Roleplay is very heavy in this thing. Roleplay is very kind of front and center. And then there is some combat that exists within that. In addition to that, you have a nice set of encounter tables that exist between the various locations to kind of give them. It's like, well, I want to go from here to I'm going to go from Phandalin to Tribor. Okay, well, here are all the encounters that exist within that path, as it were, because it must be here. And it's also nice to say, there's a good little timeline of events. Here's the kind of things that happen during the first part of the adventure, and here's the kind of stuff that starts happening in the later part of the adventure when characters should be higher level. It gives a nice kind of difference between the two things. Maybe some knights start showing up from the Inquisition that gets created as a result of the Tieflings kind of being more ostracized. Maybe the other side of the coin, maybe some of the Tiefling knights start showing up. Maybe they develop their own knights and develop their own guards and things. It's really interesting to see that kind of duality there and that good kind of timeline. So overall, what did I think about Yearning to Breathe Free? Well, it's a complex set of ideas. There's a lot going on here, a lot for a DM to digest and trying to figure out as to how they want to manage this and how they want to kind of run this. And because of that, it's harder to recommend. It's harder to say, yeah, this will be the great adventure for you. If I know a DM very well and know the kind of things he likes, but he struggles with ideas, I might point him down this path. Because it would be a good way to kind of spark the ideas to get them going to kind of fill in the gaps that this module has. But overall, I think it's just, like a lot of campaigns, it's a big old collection of good ideas. There isn't enough here to just run straight out of the box. You need to do a lot of prep to get there. And I mean a lot. You're probably talking about 2, maybe 3 weeks of prep work to kind of get it to a point where you can just start running with this. Yeah, you could just read the first chapter and kind of go, okay, well, in the first chapter, I'm going to be concentrating on this. But without reading the rest of it to kind of understand where the players are going, I think some DMs would struggle to figure out, well, if they go too fast, where do they go next, and this kind of thing. But that's always the problem with pre-generated campaign settings. You kind of need to know where the players are going, and you need to know where they are. And you usually have to do quite a bit of forward reading. Now, while this is not one of the larger ones, it's only 96 pages long. It's not that big, but at the same time, it feels like maybe expanding on it or even splitting it up would have been a better choice. Make mini little adventure modules. The series by Ashley Warren is a really good example of this. There are sub-adventures that exist within her campaign setting that you can just run. They're slot-inable. And it feels like that could have been done here. Maybe there was an adventure to smuggle in the murderers. Maybe there was another adventure to investigate the murders and figure out how they did things. And then going on from there and going further. Well, as it is, I don't think it's cohesive enough to do that. It's not long enough to be a full campaign setting, but it's too long to be like an adventure you can just pick up and run. And it's a really difficult balance to have. It's really great for those DMs that really want to have, I just need an idea to get started. But it's not so great for those DMs that are trying to figure out how to start DMing, to do I've done a couple of one-shots, I want to do a full campaign setting. This isn't for them. And because of that, and because of the issues with the map consistencies and the fact that the maps aren't loaded in like a separate file, I'm gonna have to rate this a 3 out of 5. There's just there's either not enough here or there's too much. It's in that really weird halfway place that it feels like it can be really great if the author adds more or cuts it apart into separate kind of little adventure modules. But you're welcome to disagree with me. I'm not infallible here. I'm just one guy and a DM, and that's kind of it. So thank you. Please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you do decide to purchase Yearning to Breathe Free or anything from the DM's Guild, please do remember to use my affiliate code, which will be in the doobly-doo down below. Thank you, and peace out.